Larry, I believe I would be incorrect to say that viewers of Crowdsource the Truth or fans of FreedomWatchUSA.org were surprised by IG Horowitz's report, but people are definitely outraged, indignant, irate. Choose the word. How are you tonight, Larry?
I'm doing well. I mean, I did expect this. We've said this many times on your show. I've said it on my show, Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman, and in print. It's totally predictable. This is the Justice Department circling the wagons, protecting its own. It's the deep state, and it's something which was totally expected.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people have sort of heard the overviews that we've been getting on the mainstream news, but I'm not sure that everybody fully understands what the implications of the report were and what's going to happen next. Inspector General Horowitz is not the Attorney General. Give us a little bit of a legal overview of what just happened.
Well, what happened is he's the Obama-appointed Inspector General. He's intended to be independent. A lot of people, Sean Hannity, you've got Joseph DeGeneva, his wife Tenzing, and others, were predicting that heads were going to roll. There were going to be recommended indictments. I knew that was never going to be the case. And this is just part of Fox News's hype, primarily, to boost ratings, advertising dollars each night. It's why I take offense at what I watch on Fox News, because it doesn't tell the truth to the American people. This is par for the course. The higher-ups, the elites, never get held to account. Lower-level persons, in this case, very low-level persons, get burned at the stake, hardly at all. In fact, it appears that it's just negligence is what they're talking about. And then, of course, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, who's no legal messiah, and John Durham, the U.S. Attorney in Connecticut, come out because they have egg on their face. And they say, oh, well, we disagree with this. But you know what, Jason? They're checkmated now. As a political reality in Washington, D.C., they cannot indict anybody. They cannot make any strong findings because it looks like retaliation. It'll look political. These are political animals. So they're simply covering their rear ends right now with the conservative base. And that's all it really is. It's over. And the president's on defense. And that's what's the tragedy of this whole thing. He's been badly served, not just by his own private counsel, Rudy Giuliani, who got him into this mess in the Ukraine, but he's also been badly served by his government counsel inside the White House and, of course, the Attorney General himself. This is a complete sham of what's going on. Yeah,
right. Well, the sham is the impeachment trial, and it's a little bit of a Schiff show all throughout. It's not surprising, again, that the New York Times has characterized Mr. Barr's and Mr. Durham's statements, saying that the Attorney General is reprising his role as the vocal defender of President Trump. I mean, Larry, I consider myself a vocal defender of President Trump, but all I can really do is talk. This guy's the Attorney General. What was stopping him? Why did he have to wait for this Inspector General report? Why couldn't they just do something?
He didn't. I mean, they had all the information. First of all, it was inside the Department of Justice, most of it, whether it's the FBI or Maine Justice, whether it's James Comey, Rod Rosenstein, Andrew McCabe, who, by the way, were long overdue for his indictment because a judge ordered the Justice Department to tell him whether McCabe was going to be indicted in a Freedom of Information Act case, and that hasn't happened. So this is just Barr trying to cover his big backside, and it is quite big, I might add. So you got to get a little humor out of this, but it's a dog and pony show. It's the Keystone Cops, and the president is left in the wake, and that's what's really sad. And I watched him give a statement today of sorts with Kellyanne Conway and others. It was pathetic. I mean, the guy was basically crying, and this is the president of the United States, how he's so surprised at what happened. He shouldn't be surprised anymore about what happens with the people in and around him. They sell him out. They're there for themselves. Most lawyers are there for themselves. I got to tell you that. And they put their clients second. That's regrettable. And the president has been put second. And Barr is not going to be able to do anything now. As a political reality, he wants to save his own skin. He's been threatened with impeachment. He's been threatened with criminal contempt sanctions with regard to Congress. So don't expect him to do anything, and neither for Durham, because his career will be over as well. That's just the way it works in Washington. And frankly, it's why you need a Freedom Watch. It's why you need a People's Justice Department. It's why we need to rise up with citizens' grand juries. We will hold these people accountable. We will indict them. We will try them. We will legally and peacefully fry them. And we will seek to enforce those verdicts. Now, the American people have had it. They're fed up. But I also want them to be completely fed up at the garbage they hear on Fox News and some other outlets. Not you, Jason. You allow me and you tell the truth. But to keep peddling this, you know what, to the American people, it's just, it's not just unfair, it's dishonest. And that's why I have such a disdain for Sean Hannity, because it's all about him. It's all about lying to his viewers and the people. It's about boosting his ratings. He had 4 million people last week. You know what? And he's feeding them bullshit. And that's the problem here.
Yeah. Well, it's worse than dishonest, because I think what it does is it promotes a certain complacency that might actually have a negative impact on any kind of proactive effort that somebody might have otherwise had that perhaps could spur something to happen. It was a little bit disheartening, Larry, to see this ridiculous clip of the incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for, the hubris displayed by Andrew McCabe as he sits there basically unable to contain his smile. I mean, the guy's basically getting off scot-free. Isn't that what's happening?
They're all getting off scot-free. And that's the way it works in Washington, because you gore my ox, I'll gore yours. So, yeah, we'll all just, have our dog and pony shows, our reality series television, our scandal industry extras. We'll go on our respective cable news networks that put us on. We'll make a lot of money. We'll write books, and we'll prance around Washington as if we're holier than thou. But in the end, we're all going to party with each other, and we're all profiting by the whole thing. And the American people are fed up. This country, I'm sad to say, is more corrupt than the British Crown in the years leading up to 1776. Not the American people, but the government. It is totally, totally corrupt. And this is a good lesson for the American people to see this, because they've been sold out by people inside the Trump administration. The president doesn't even know what's going on. His head is spinning quicker than, the character in The Exorcist right now. And I'm not equating him with that. I love the president, but you know what? He better wake up, because frankly, he's going to the guillotine as we speak.
So,
and it's not that, yeah.
Well, so you're saying now that you're just thinking there's going to be impeachment in the Senate?
Well, there's going to be impeachment in the House. And frankly, I don't think it's a lock that the Senate is going to vote to acquit him. I really do not think it's a lock. Not with Mitch McConnell. I mean, Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, won't even let the president call witnesses. I mean, that's what I read last week. Now, I don't know what the reality is here, but, he's in it for his colleagues. Who are his former colleagues? Joe Biden is one of them. So don't expect Joe Biden to be called in front of the U.S. Senate in an impeachment trial. Don't expect Biden's son, Hunter, to be called. These people are part of the club. And frankly, they've always wanted to put a knife in Trump's back, as your mem, depicted several weeks ago.
Yep.
And I wouldn't count it out that there would be enough votes to convict the president, not with these rhino establishment Republicans led by McConnell and Lindsey Graham and company.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, I think, was saying that he doesn't see a need to call Adam Schiff as a witness. I mean, Larry, as a lawyer, as somebody who's dedicated his career and his life to upholding and defending the law, it's got to be pretty frustrating to see this totally, there's a total absence of law in what we're seeing here. It's like due process has gone out the window.
Jason, I gave up long ago. That's why I started Judicial Watch, ran for the U.S. Senate, then started Freedom Watch. That's why I do what I do in my private practice. I gave up looking to the government to help me. What did Ronald Reagan say? The scariest words in the English language are, "Hi, I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help you." Okay, and this is what I take issue with my former colleagues at Judicial Watch, Fitton, who's not a lawyer. Get all these documents, go on TV and say, "Gee, Justice Department, why don't you do something?" Well, we know they're not going to do anything. Now we know that. So use your $110 million in net assets and really do something, Fitton and Judicial Watch, other than just getting documents. Everybody wins FOIA cases. You file a FOIA case, you're going to get documents. What are you going to do with the documents? You can put the documents where the sun don't shine. But it's time that real action is taken by the American people, peacefully and legally. And I'm afraid to say is that citizens' grand juries, and if we get fortunate and get a judge in the right case, like in the Zimmerman case, I'm not filing any more cases unless I have to in federal court. These federal judges are so corrupt, they're so politicized. By and large, there's almost no exceptions to people who are on the bench these days. The Trump judges, in their own right, are just as bad as the Obama and Clinton judges. They have no guts, they have no courage. I'm filing cases in state court in Florida and elsewhere because at least those judges are elected. They don't have lifetime tenure. They're answerable to the American people. In Florida, in particular, cases proceed forward. Judges don't get to decide what's plausible and what's not and dismiss a case. And let's hope that that works. But we're also going to be doing these citizens' grand juries. Robert Mueller is going to be tried in the springtime of next year. We're going to have indictments with others, whether it's Comey or McCabe or Rosenstein or Clapper and Brennan. And talk about Clapper and Brennan. Why is it that Barr is just a mouthpiece? Why is it that Durham is just a mouthpiece? Because Brennan and Clapper collected dirt on virtually everybody who's anything in Washington, D.C., quote unquote, anything. And they're scared that if they move too aggressively, that they're going to be smeared. Lindsey Graham, they'll take him right out of the closet. You know, I'm not a homophobe, but I'll tell you something. He's afraid to be unmasked, and certain other people there as well. I'm not just talking about being in the closet. I'm talking about other things. Their girlfriends, boyfriends, you know, whatever else they've done. That's why nothing happens in Washington, because in the end, the intelligence agencies and the FBI have the dirt on everybody. That's why Comey can walk scot-free, everybody. Now, I'm not afraid. You're not afraid. The American people cannot be afraid. Our founding fathers were not afraid. But these people are afraid because what's more important to them is their standing, their power, and enriching themselves. And at least the American people are now seeing that. So I call on Sean Hannity, and I hope Rush will tell it like it is tomorrow. I don't think Rush, you know, gives people false hope. But it's time that we knew the facts, that the American people were given the facts of life by these so-called commentators on cable news and elsewhere.
Larry, the New York Times recently ran this article about James Comey that, you know, looking at it today in retrospect, this very calm, this doesn't look like a guy who's concerned that he's going to be prosecuted or indicted or anything like that. And the fact that his house looks like it should be in Architectural Digest, except for these Star Wars toys at his feet, this is a very odd picture to me. There have been rumors around the internet that certain people who are probably in the same context of those we'd like to see indicted are using unconventional methods of communicating. The chat functions within video games in PlayStation and Xbox Star Wars games. This is certainly something a sophisticated lawyer might do to avoid leaving a trail and having their messages be discovered in a civil or criminal trial, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about that, Jason, but it's worth looking into. I agree. But these people are so cocky. They're so confident. Look at Hillary Clinton all these years, how many crimes she's committed, how many crimes Bill Clinton has committed. They know they're untouchable. They know they're above the law. They think they can skate. And they have. And this is why the American people are going to need to rise up. We're trying the peaceful and legal means. And I'm fearful that particularly now what we see with this IG report, that worse is going to happen. And I hope people will read the column that I wrote Sunday. It's up on LarryKlayman.com. It's up on Reclaim America. I boosted it on Facebook. It's why I sued for George Zimmerman. It explains who I am. It explains what I do. It explains, you know, the history of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and why they did what they did as founding fathers. I'm not equating myself to them. They're far greater than I am. But, you know, they knew that we would enter into this revolutionary state yet again. And they predicted that it would happen. And we are in a revolutionary state. We are in a revolution right now. The American people thus far have not reacted violently. But that's going to happen. And I'm trying to prevent that from happening. I swear, I'm trying to help prevent that from happening. But that will happen if this continues. And this country will be torn apart. And in this column, I pointed out that, you know, for instance, ABC News and these ultra-leftist groups, the cockroaches are now coming out, you know, of their cave.
Yeah.
You know, an atom bomb can't even destroy the cockroaches, you know, frankly. But the first thing they say, Larry Klayman specializes in suing black people.
Whoa.
Black people. You know how many white people I've sued compared to anybody who's black? Obama's the only white politician I've ever sued. Okay, all of the rest are white, whether it's George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, the Clintons, or whatever. But this is what they do to whip up this race war. And you know what? There's going to be a violent reaction from the right because they're seeing this president possibly go down. And there are people out there that are not peaceful like you and me that will be probably taking matters into their own hands. And when that happens, you're going to have this violent clash between the left and the right. And we are going to be in a revolution just like we saw in 1776, maybe even worse. So we need to head that off.
We've seen these violent clashes, Antifa and other protests, people getting chemical milkshakes thrown on them and things like that. You and Joel Gilbert joined me just the other day. We did, I think, a very important interview about the lawsuit and about Joel's movie, The Trayvon Hoax, which people can see at thetrayvonhoax.com. I've been getting a lot of emails, Larry, from people who watched the movie after seeing our interview, and they have all been positive. People's eyes are being opened up to the facts of what went on. This is one of the most stunning social engineering deceptions and manipulations of the American public in history, and it was orchestrated by some sinister people.
Yes, it's irrefutable, and people go out there and they give commentary like Joey Jackson, a criminal defense lawyer on CNN. They don't watch this. They don't know what it is they're talking about, but they'll spew this forth. And what they're doing is they're creating racial division and hatred, and they're furthering that. And that's a real tragedy because what Joel did, Gilbert, is irrefutable. And it's something that cannot be denied. So I challenge anybody to look at the evidence here. And if we can get to a jury, we will get very strong verdicts. I'm convinced of it. And you know what? Like I said the other day, it's not blacks who called me up, cursing at me, threatening me, and that kind of thing. 95% were liberal whites, the Berkeley University types that were calling, with all kinds of profanity and everything else. And black people understand, the facts of life. They understand the injustice in society. And by and large, they've been sympathetic to our bringing a lawsuit in this regard. And you can look at some of the comments. Yeah. So it's the leftist whites that really are completely out of control. And they're holier than thou. They sit in their ivory tower. They don't know what's going on beneath them. And it makes them feel good about themselves that they can take shots at people, who actually done research and they haven't done anything. Right. And then it's, of course, people like Joey Jackson or Don Lemon or others who are, exploiting this on television. I mean, they're the blacks that are out there, but the average black person, he knows what's going on here.
I agree with you, Larry. I've been contacted by a lot of black people as well who saw the movie, and they are thankful that Joel has pointed this out. I mean, as you said, it's explained so clearly and backed by such irrefutable evidence. And then when you see the reaction of the people who are being accused of being involved in this, they don't directly address the evidence or refute it with other statements. They just say it's preposterous and things like that.
Let me give you a one of the responses that I understand Joel got, after, we filed a lawsuit. Rachel Gentile put herself forward as Trayvon Martin's girlfriend. The real girlfriend, as researched by Joel Gilbert in his book Trayvon Hoax and his documentary, is Diamond Eugene, Brittany Eugene, who's very attractive. And I'm not disparaging people who are overweight or not attractive. That's not their fault. They shouldn't be blamed for that. But one of the black people that commented to Joel Gilbert said, quote, "Trayvon don't lay with no black dog." Okay. Ooh. And, they see, that this is not likely. And I don't condone that kind of language. But this is an example of how, they're down at ground level and they understand what's happening here. Rachel Gentile was obviously not Trayvon Martin's girlfriend as she testified under oath and as she was put up to testify under oath.
Right. And Joel presents a ton of evidence supportive of that statement. But, I mean, look, we're talking about a murder. We're talking about facts and evidence. People's feelings, unfortunately, don't matter. The fact is, Joel presents us a series of women or girls that Trayvon Martin was involved with, and all of them were slim, attractive, certain type that he seemed to want to date. And this girl who appeared on the stand did not match that type. So again, it's another element of evidence that makes
we're not disparaging her. That's not her fault, right. And people are born the way they're born, and that's under God, they're all entitled to their rights. But what I'm saying is, I cited that only because it shows the reality of people who understand the way the world works in
Yeah,
practicality.
absolutely. Very practical evaluation. And of course, that woman said other things. She can't read. So how could she have written this note if she can't read? I don't know if you can write
Right.
and not read.
Right. But it doesn't stop the race baiting industry. It doesn't stop the CNNs, the MSNBCs. And I might add, you haven't seen any major coverage from Fox News about this either because they run away from these stories. And you can see what they did today with Chris Wallace and others. There were people in the news division high-fiving the IG's report, smirking,
Wow.
laughing on air. This is Fox News. So
Wow.
it's two-faced. And Hannity is the other side of it, and Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson and what they do. I don't see as much out of Tucker or Laura as this, but Hannity is just, he's way, way, way out there in telling the American people falsehoods. And that's why I broke with him many years ago. You can read about it in my book, Horrors. He was never honest with me. He would tell me lies. He once told me that, we'd have all the Clinton women on the air, that I might as well go along with, that I was representing most of them. And I called them up and I said, are you going on with Hannity? And they said, no. And this is the kind of person he is, and that's why I really, really don't like him. And I think he's doing a great disservice to the American people. I don't care if he's popular or not. Stop watching and listening to that garbage. Put the popcorn and beer down, get up off your couch, support Freedom Watch or some other group or set of individuals that are actually doing something that are not telling you falsehoods, because you need to know the facts of life to know that the American people now need to rise up peacefully and legally in a very forceful way. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. And even the president, if you watch him today, he was losing it. Even he couldn't believe it. And he more than anybody else should know the way the deep state works.
Yeah, see, my concern is that Barr is in there, not for the reasons that everybody else thinks he's in there. People have this very kind of like knee-jerk reactionary response to virtually anything, because Barr came in there and the first thing he did was adhering to the law and justice, and that was in the favor of Trump. Everybody thought he was Trump's savior, and anytime I express any doubt about William Barr, get a lot of comments from people who are just super pro-Trump that don't want to hear anything negative about Barr. But we've spoken many times. He's a GHW Bushman. He was there giving all those pardons to Weinberger and all the guys that were involved in Iran-Contra. We really don't have any reason to believe that William Barr would be anything other than a deep, deep, deep stater.
Well, and that's what happens. Look, whether it's federal judges who get there based on political patronage, campaign contributions, scratching the backs of those that can get them their job, then they pay them back once they get on the bench, or whether it's appointees like Barr, they're part of the establishment. They think like the establishment. They're not going to take risks. They're going to protect their own turf first. They're not going to get way out there. And all you heard today from Barr and Durham were these little pleas that, I don't agree with you, we're going to do something. Well, they're not going to do anything. I can think back to when Jeanine Pirro in Fox was extolling the virtues of James Comey. She wound up with egg on her face, a man of great integrity. And that was, like I've said many times, when they use that phrase in Washington, D.C., run for the exits, man of great integrity. Ken Starr, he lives in a dream world. He was taken apart by David Kendall, the Clintons' lawyer. Now he's doing commentary on Fox News. Perfect place for him. Okay, spew forth that nonsense too, Ken. You live in a different world than reality. You're part of that establishment club, and you see nothing wrong with the way things are happening in terms of the ultimate result. I do see something wrong with that, and our founding fathers found something wrong with King George III. And I got to tell you, these people in Washington today that are running this country are worse than the British Crown in 1776, in my opinion.
I think you're right, and they're equipped with technology that makes their capabilities quite a bit scarier. So, Larry, we obviously don't want an armed conflict. You have already done one of your citizens' grand juries. We had the testimony from Dr. Jerome Corsi. What's the status of that? How can people look to these citizen grand juries to get a solution?
No, we don't want an armed conflict, and that's why I'm being Paul Revere in that regard. The clarion call, and you are too, Jason. We don't want that. But that's something that is likely to happen if things continue the way they do. And this is a flashpoint of what happened today. Anybody who tells me and goes on Hannity and says, "Oh, we're going to get justice here," that's going to inflame the situation because they're not even going to have that as a safety valve anymore to turn on Fox News and listen to that garbage. So, yes, they can join us at Freedom Watch, support that. We're small. We need to get bigger. We don't have 110 million like Judicial Watch does. We need the support. So go to freedomwatchusa.org and support us. Yes, we will be commissioning grand juries, after the new year. We will be bringing about justice. And I hope that, you will join us in that effort and join our Justice League. And I hope that there'll be more groups that will join Freedom Watch in doing that. Documents are not enough. We don't need to write history books. We need to make history right now.
Absolutely. But, I mean, is there anything that we can tell people about the logistical process once we do these?
Oh, well, I suggest that they watch, and it's on Crowdsource the Truth and on Freedom Watch's website, the citizens grand jury that we did with Mueller. We neutrally obtain grand jurors. We present information. It doesn't even need to be evidence, but it is evidence. In Corsi's case, he testified under oath, and he presented evidence that Mueller had attempted to suborn perjury with him to get him to lie, to implicate the president in Russian collusion, that there was illegal surveillance, and that there was also leaks of grand jury information. Now, we have a lawsuit on that, too, which is in the appellate court right now because a hack Clinton judge dismissed the thing. We talked about that, too. So that's up now on appeal. But, we can't even count on that. So we need to have our own citizens' grand juries, and we need to take matters into our own legal and peaceful hands. And I hope that people will join us in that endeavor.
Yeah. And so what Dr. Corsi's lawsuits against Robert Mueller, this is the slow gears of justice, right? It just seems to sometimes take forever. Any updates on those various things? I mean, we know it was dismissed by this judge, but...
Well, yeah, it's up at the D.C. Circuit. They set a briefing schedule, and then we file briefs. We have a little argument, and then there'll be a ruling. And we're hopeful that we'll get a decent panel. But I'll tell you something, Jason. I'm not sitting here waiting around for that to happen, which is why we need to move forward with these citizens' grand juries. And I realize we only have half an hour tonight.
Yeah.
And I want to come back at another time, and we can really lay out the procedures. We've done that before, but it's not bad to go over them again to educate the American people, because Justice Scalia, may his soul rest in peace, as I said, in a decision that he wrote, a majority opinion in 1992, United States versus Williams, said unequivocally that the grand jury belongs to the American people, not the three branches of government. And there are states that have citizens' grand juries. People say, "Oh, Klayman made this up." I didn't make it up. Justice Scalia didn't make it up in Foundation. These states aren't making it up. But now we need to do it for ourselves, because only we can right the ship of state. You can now see that our Justice Department is corrupt to the core. I'm an alma mater. I believed in it at one time. I don't believe in it at all anymore.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, Larry. There's been so many things that have just not been handled properly, so much prosecutorial misconduct in the case of Dr. Corsi and the Bundys. Have there been any developments in the Bundy case?
There have, and we're going to be going to an oral argument in March in the Bundy case. And, we gave a lot of documents about this whistleblower that we got through a Freedom of Information Act request. See, we use the documents.
Right.
We don't just sit there and crow about them.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave them to the court, Ninth Circuit, and I'm confident that they will affirm the ruling of the lower court dismissing the Bundy indictment. But there's a lot of work, there's a lot of risk there, and there's still a lot of work to do. So I hope people will support Clive Bundy by going to cliveandbundydefensefund.org, cliveandbundydefensefund.org.
Yeah, and people can donate to the legal defense of Clive and Bundy at that page. We're just about out of time, Larry, so just to put a point on your conclusions tonight, I mean, is this it? Is Trump just out, or is there some way that he can kind of move things around and do a miracle here?
I think he's in potential serious difficulty because he's totally on defense. He's got nothing leading the charge for him. Giuliani could wind up getting indicted himself. I don't know what Jay Sekulow is doing. He's probably exiting stage left at this point. I don't think Jay would have been part of the stupidity of what Giuliani pulled off with regard to the Ukraine. I mean, wasn't a crime. It's not impeachable as far as the president's concerned, but maybe it's one of the most stupid things ever. President having been exonerated from Russian collusion, now they go ahead and collude with the Ukrainians. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, and it was collusion. Okay, that's what it was. But that's not a crime, and it's not impeachable.
But Larry, was it? Didn't he just ask the guy to look into Joe Biden's crimes? Isn't that what the president's supposed to do?
Well, how do you defend collusion? How do you define it?
It's not even. It's
not a crime.
Right.
It's not even a crime, but it was collusion, right? So why give the Democrats something to use against you? And with these dishonest hacks like Nadler and Schiff and Schumer and Pelosi, why give that to them? And it's a tragedy. It's an American tragedy. This administration is going to be ground to a halt.
Oh boy, I hope
so.
That doesn't
I think he'll survive, but you know what? It's going to take a lot to do that. I'll do everything I can in my right to do it. And I wrote a column about a week ago as well. The reason I've never had contact with President Trump, I believe, is Roger Stone. I think Roger Stone prevented that. The president was listening to him at that time. And I would very much like to meet with the president. And I hope people will contact the White House and urge that, because I really would like to have input here as to where he's going, because he's gotten very bad advice.
Yeah, and you've actually just reminded me, this will be my last question. I know you're out of time. So Adam Schiff has totally ignored the Constitution. He's totally ignored due process. He's having closed-door hearings where he's generating, false evidence. At what point, Larry, can someone who is a congressperson do something that provokes the U.S. Capitol Police to pull them out of there in handcuffs like they did today to Owen Schroyer, who was put in jail for disrupting Congress?
Well, I don't know what Owen Schroyer did. I'm no fan of Owen Schroyer anymore. Okay, he defamed Jerry Corsi and me. I mean, he's basically a tool. He
just stood up and yelled in the middle of the proceedings, so they dragged him out of there.
Well, if he yelled in the middle of the proceeding, he probably should have been dragged out of there, to be honest. You got to have some respect and some decorum. There's ways to deal with Adam Schiff, and it's not by yelling. It's by holding him legally accountable for his crimes. He's a despicable human being, and so is Nadler. And I mean, in my opinion, they're both criminals, and so is Schumer and Pelosi. So,
was there any action that someone could have taken?
In the middle of the proceeding? I don't understand.
Was there any action someone like Devin Nunes could have taken when Adam Schiff started these closed-door testimonies to just shut it down and nip it in the bud, or was there just no mechanism for doing that?
We've talked about that before, Jason. The Republicans could end this thing right now.
And they're not.
All they have to do is have Lindsey Graham's Judiciary Committee or some other Senate committee subpoena Joe Biden and his son. Right. The Democrats would run for the exits. This tells you what goes on in Washington, D.C. It's like, King Louis XIV's court at Versailles. It's unbelievable. And, it's corrupt to the core. And that's why I say we may be headed for the same fate as Louis XV, who followed it with Marie Antoinette. Because, they're just a bunch of, I don't want to use any off-color language or scream, but these people they're dishonest hacks even on the Republican side. Why don't they do what they have to do and end this thing and subpoena Biden, subpoena his son? The Democrats will run for the exits.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to see that, unfortunately, because I tend to agree with you. None of these guys are going to do anything. But, Larry, I really appreciate you making the time for us tonight, sharing those insights. I hope that people will go over to freedomwatchusa.org and support Larry and his crew at Freedom Watch. We need all the help we can get right now. I share your concerns, Larry, about the future of this Trump administration, given the latest developments and just the smug look on Andrew McCabe and James Comey's faces. It's like a picture tells a million words there.
It does. They never were worried, and that's what I've been saying all along. No more than Hillary Clinton is worried.
Exactly.
But thank you, Jason, for letting me say the word. I'm a little bit agitated tonight because even when you see it, even though you predicted it, it is completely shocking and disgusting.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Hopefully tomorrow will improve. Larry, thank you for joining me. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to support Freedom Watch. You can do it at freedomwatchusa.org. You can become a sponsor on patreon.com/freedomwatch. And you can also become a sponsor on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I can't keep bringing you these shows with amazing guests like Larry Klayman without your support. So please become a sponsor today. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for watching.